Hi everyone, I'm Chad Jenkins. Welcome to the Collab Podcast, brought to you by SEEDSPARJ, where we explore the art of collaboration to ignite exponential growth in organizations just like yours by doing just that, collaborating with entrepreneurs all over the globe. Welcome back to the Collab Podcast. I'm Chad Jenkins, your host. Today I get the honor of interviewing my good friend Scott Akerley, of just working with entrepreneurs for a very long time of all different sizes from a standpoint of serving them. And this takes me way back to when I was in the phone business. I used to be known as the phone guy in Nextel telephones. You remember this hideous beep beep?
Yeah.
That was horrible. But I became the largest distributor in the Southeast, and I still hear that crazy sound in my head. Therefore, all of my phones stay on silent 100% of the time now, all of them, and turned over. But way back when, it afforded me the ability just to really watch all different size companies, business owners, and also entrepreneurs. And to me, there's a clear difference. One wants to create value every day. The other wants to scale based upon the way their industry has conventionally been scaled of the past, right? They're we don't want to lose anything. And the other is we want to continuously create. So that when I mentioned those two, that's the differences between for me. But what I recognized, because I would always be very intrigued around the way their business model worked, and I would often see scorecards, we'll use some EOS language, scorecards, and it was very customary, at least it appeared, and then after validating some of my theory, it had been definitely validated that many of their scorecards were a representation from a goal standpoint, just elevated beyond what they did last quarter, last month, last year.
Right.
But and this happened to me, and it calls it out in that Just At a Zero book that at a very early age, and this is probably a result of just being in grade school and young boys talking about, somebody probably said, I bet my father makes more than yours. And of course that was intriguing, and I think I probably guessed the number, but when I guessed it, I had to train myself to do reverse math pretty quick. So later on, when, let's say an example, I was engaged with a landscape company and I could see how many trucks they have. They were buying Nextel telephones from me, so I knew exactly how many team members they had. I was there delivering new phones. It's
right.
Pretty quick and easy to run the math to understand exactly what the capacity would be to understand the revenue that the organization could actually be creating. But in further engaging with that entrepreneur or business owner, oftentimes in this scenario it'd be business owner, I would just run some quick math and ask some interesting questions, and it was validated that they were just striving for a little bit more than they strived for the prior period. And that got me thinking. So cap gap is what I now have evolved this theory, and I didn't have words for it until working with Dean Jackson, which I'm sure you know. Yeah, of course you do, because I think we've recently spoken with him. So Dean had named it, and his was a little bit different because it's applicable in the real estate industry. Like the cap gap, whenever real estate agents working under a broker, when you earn up to this level, they don't split the commission anymore. Like the high performance. Yeah, they're cappers. And so he's coming to it from a standpoint, if you could provide listings to those other real estate agents that were not yet capped out, then of course the broker could make a lot more money. And I was like, wow, that's very interesting. It's very similar to my concept that is applicable for any type of organization that has X amount of resources and X amount of hours and X amount of revenue by hour, and they can create, like winning to me would be maximum output. But I don't see that. And have you ever ran across that in all the organizations you've been owned and have been involved in?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind when you say that is we had kind of, our top producers are typically always busy, right? And that next tier, very talented at what they do. Maybe they don't market as well, whatever it is. But we were trying to always fill their capacity. Oh, yeah. But we created an inside sales team with the goal of saying, can we drive 50 deals to around each month to escrow officers, regardless of geographics? Because typically someone wanted to work in that city with those escrow officers.
Got it.
And so that was what we tried to fix. And so we created this team, and that was the goal. Is like, okay, exactly what you just said with the agents is, if this escrow officer is 4 deals under capacity, let's not try to add, because our sales team naturally wants to go sell the best team.
Absolutely. Yes.
This team is focused on how do we fill the capacity of the people who were underproducing it, and it evolved to kind of say 2 things. One, when we wanted to recruit people, we could guarantee them a certain amount of business, but it wasn't enough to be very profitable. So can we use it in, I can now recruit you, you're going to lose 10% of your business in that process of the move, but I can add that 10% back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Inside sales team.
Yeah.
And then with our existing teams, how do we fill the capacity on those teams? And then you would also do it, every once in a while, a broker would move companies, and part of the deal was they had to use their in-house services. And so we could naturally say, okay, I'm going to fill in that gap. You lost there at 5 deals a month. We're going to fill in that gap for the next 90 days while we find you new clients.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so I guess that's what comes to my mind when you say that, is we were constantly trying to fill in those gaps across the company so everyone was close to max production kind of thing.
In that strategy, first and foremost, and that's one reason I'm so glad that you and I are talking about this, because the thinking is very similar, and collaborations is a lot of what you've done in the past to reach the success that you did. You said 300, is that correct? Escrow and title?
Yeah, 300 employees.
Yeah, 300. Wow, that's incredible. It makes sense the way that you approached it. I envision, an example, the landscaper that I was speaking about, a lot of times that was a very novel concept to them.
Right.
Their strive was 20% over whatever they did last period. And I said, thinking about it, it's your lowest cost of goods. If you were to potentially partner with an opportunity that would create an outcome where that capacity was eaten up, where you were actually selling all of it. Yeah. So applicable to the way that you solved for it, did you interpret that you had a little bit more cost of goods in that internal sales team to yield the outcome for maximum capacity for everyone?
Yeah, we did for sure. But it the beautiful thing about that is that it grew into this massive inside sales team, which, as things converge, I love kind of like what is going to converge in the future that's going to allow you to do certain things. So when we started this over a decade ago, that was the goal. So let's fill in capacity and let's help recruit, that we can fill in the capacity when they recruit someone in. But it kept growing and growing and growing. And then we started to say, okay, I think we were at Abundance. It was one of the times I think I was maybe talking to Dan Sullivan, and we were at Abundance, and Peter Diamante said, go back, put data on your balance sheet and try to make it more valuable. And so we went from marketing to a couple thousand agents to ramping that up to 40,000 agents.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that database, then we could start to do more and more things to market. And then technology started to catch up to where we didn't have to be geographic. We started to set up networks of notaries, started to go to homes, we started to travel more, we were talking to people more, we were solving all their issues. And it was no longer about the geographical component. So we were marketing all over, our primary offices were in Southern California, but we started marketing all over California.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
That. And a lot of that had to do with our outside sales team and inside sales team and how they collaborated together. Yeah. We worked on referrals together. And so it was pretty cool.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah. So that wrapped up at least 2 or 3 different growth concepts that I help entrepreneurs with all the time. So that leveraging the capacity, understanding in the example, and that's what made me ask that specific question, at face value, you put a little bit more investment.
Yeah.
But is it also fair that by doing so, it lowered your overall cost of goods for all the original volume that you're already at the certain level of capacity? Because at the end of the day, you're paying the people anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is 100% the case. Yeah. And because someone would be, 20 or 30% under capacity, you'd fill that in. And, and the 2 of them usually are teams of 2 in the smaller teams. And, all of a sudden now they're working full time and they don't have that.
They're producing the revenue, and everything that they were up to that, you said 20 or 30% capacity was left on the table of a normal month before you took this strategy.
Yeah.
Well, the second that you did that, I'm blending that additional cost of goods, 30% in this hypothetical example, back across all the existing deals that they were already doing. Therefore, they cost less. because I got more revenue to sort of spread the peanut butter. There's a lot of people like
100%
say.
win-win.
Yeah.
Because, kind of going back to the realtor capper situation is, those middle teams, their commission splits, they're all on commission, weren't quite as high.
Right.
And so there was more profit within that. And so, they were
Mm-hmm.
more business. It lowered the cost of goods across the table. Everybody made more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You touched on one thing as well that I feel like is something most specific to entrepreneurs and not specifically to the definition that I have for straight up business owners. And that is create value every day, right? Looking for those frictions, which enabled you to take not only the internal sales team, birth the internal sales team to capture the capacity, but then begin to grow way outside of that. And I remember this from our prior conversations. You're always looking to create value for those that you serve, which is all. To me, it's all about. Yes.
Yeah, that's a daily dream. How do you do that?
Yeah.
But that brings me to another thought when you said that is, one of the ways we did joint ventures.
Yes.
But one of the things that I felt we had a lot of room for capacity in was our internal management team. So when we did joint ventures and we started managing other companies and creating other companies with real estate brokers, we took our expertise, their real estate transactions, created a new company.
Mm-hmm.
Our internal management team had capacity.
Yes.
So we could add these joint ventures. And then over time, not only, that you have these side benefits as you start doing these things. And so they had more capacity. Yeah. And then over time, as it grew, we were able to recruit more and more highly talented people.
Absolutely.
To where actually they would come in and go, hey, now we have more capacity. Let's start a finance division. Now we have more capacity. Let's start a notary company. We have more capacity. Let's start an insurance company. And so not only did they have more capacity and they were doing a better job and they were more professional and they were helping us with all those things, but it actually created other opportunities because now when you have a higher level person, they actually want to push you every day.
That's right.
I mean, that's what I don't want to push people. I want them to push me.
Yes.
And so now they would continue to say, how do I add value? We have capacity. How do we add value and improve the process? So that team ended up opening multiple businesses. And
that's
at one
awesome.
point, 16 different businesses that they were managing.
Oh, wow.
That would have just been the one.
It just been the one. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Taking full capacity given, of course, leverage for return. And then it just began to snowball after that. And they began to really drink the Kool-Aid and find opportunities themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's fun in that situation. They're learning, they're growing, they own things. I mean, they create vision, you help them fulfill it. And
you're opening up their own entrepreneurial spirit.
I mean, they just they have that same spirit as well as they're more entrepreneurial.
Yes.
They want to help each other. They want to create raving fans. Or one of our taglines is raising raving fans. And just how do you do that? And so they've really pushed that. And it was fun to watch. And just taking that friction out of every part of the transaction.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah. And a huge success, not only for you, but for them as well, all along the way. And of course, at the end as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I assume those relationships you still have, and whatever you end up doing, they'll be happy to jump right back in bed with you and do it again because it was so much fun.
Yeah, it was for sure. Many of our teammates were there 15, 20, 25 years. So,
oh, wow. That's very strategic coach of you.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it means you're definitely doing something right. Yeah. Empowering them. The realization that, and I'm projecting most organizations that I deal with, most entrepreneur-led organizations I deal with, which are focused on creating value every day. Right. But we definitely get inside of our own head. We look at our own numbers. I would strongly consider or encourage to potentially look at the entire organization and figure out exactly what the total capacity is. And if you don't want to take that as your every week scorecard that you view, which I would suggest that you would, at least create one that you look at quarterly and then open up the ideas for the entire team to figure out how we could maximize and leverage the rest of this capacity that we're already paying for.
Yeah. Yeah. I would totally, sometimes we did things, we had an annual calendar of how we ran the company. And I think it was fun to take things like that and say, okay, in March or August, we are going to just focus on the data.
Oh, I love that.
It's just a brainstorm. We're spending an hour on brainstorming how do you grow it. And so the same kind of capacity conversation get it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Spend the time. If you're not talking about anything else,
Yeah.
like, how do you do this?
I love that idea of separating it. And of course, you probably know what I would want to do. I'd want to name it as well. That way people can own it, right? Oh, they get to go to the blah, blah, blah meeting. This is a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It also helps with that focus. At least in my experience, it does. Yeah. Let's touch on one thing that I also don't see being considered in this filling up of the capacity. I mentioned it earlier that it is the least costly resource we have to leverage to create more revenue and ultimately more profit. In the example we gave, when you filled up the capacity, it made everything else more profitable because I'm paying those salaries in applicable examples anyway. There's one other hook that I have used a lot in working with organizations once they identify the capacity, when they began to understand that that is their least expensive resource to turn into money, is to potentially partner on outcomes by leveraging that capacity. So obviously most of us, and I would say all of us, would much rather get paid on the front because that is today's convention. But when you consider, depending on how fast you get an invoice out, and if you bill it after you've completed the work or if the transaction is closed, and then you're given net 15 or net 30 terms, which a lot of organizations are doing, you may also consider how quickly success actually happens when you partner on the outcome. You might get paid just as fast, but you're not beholden to the margins that are the convention in your industry. So being able to leverage that capacity and collaborate with someone else who can fill up that capacity and just be very straightforward and honest with them. It was like, hey, I have this additional capacity. I'd like to partner on the outcome. This is what I see as the opportunity. If you'll collectively collaborate with me, we'll split that outcome. And we just split it whenever the money comes in. That's been a game changer for many organizations of embracing collaboration with the consideration of their cap gap. Otherwise, it's just evaporating into the ether.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's something, most of ours were kind of like joint ventures, and we would do partnerships like that. And there was other benefits of, having a statewide organization, how many referrals you got from different situations. And there's other benefits like that. But, and we're, the one business we're kind of talking about is it's on our roadmap to do a project. We won't get to 12 to 24 months. And so you could take it on today and immediately add a significant amount of revenue by partnering on that. And why would we wait 12 to 24 months to do that?
No, because that's capacity that's going out the window. Yeah, you're just leaving a bunch of money on the table.
Yep.
And to the point, and to the point that you made in your actual experience, there's no telling what other doors that opens up. So it could be the most vital resource you have for the future growth of your organization. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and because of that, we would partner with lots of other people. Now the lender liked us and wanted to partner with us. The title company liked us and wanted to partner with us. All these other vendors liked us and wanted to partner with us. And then they also helped us create joint ventures. And they would help us. Hey, you got to work. They're great partners.
Yeah,
you got to work with us and help us do that. And
they became your sales team.
All these other referral partners. We would have sales, tech teams, all these people that would refer us, and we were this network that would refer us into different brokerages. And like by partnering with our software company, they would introduce us to new tech platforms that were coming maybe from the East Coast because they were national and we were in California. Like, if you're coming to California, you've got to meet this partner.
Oh, wow.
And so we had this national referral base into a market we had never had because of that. And so you're right. There's all these other little things that start to happen, which started with, how do we do a joint venture and how do we use the capacity of our internal team? All these other little things start to happen out of that.
Yeah, Scott, I would argue that you created a system. You might not have yet named it, but there's a lot of value in the way that you did what you did do that others would be delighted to engage with you on if you ever want to turn that into revenue creation as well. Yeah. The way in which you did it. Because I'm sure there are a couple other title companies in Southern California and all over California.
Right.
Yeah, and escrow companies, and they did not do it the way you did. Yeah. So, I have one concept in growth strategy, and it is my X, divorce the convention, but the my X stands for monetize your experience. It's a clear exact example. Is recognizing that many entrepreneurs are in their organizations for, let's say, 20, 30 years. and they make money. There's cash flow, there's retirement, there's enterprise value that they create in their own organization. But I would argue they're leaving a very, very high enterprise value on the table because they're giving it away for free. And it's the how they do what they do. And they did in this example.
Wow.
Yeah. Something to ponder for later, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be another discussion.
Yes,
for another
yes.
day.
Now, what we're recently talking about, do you want to touch on that just a little bit?
Sure.
Of being able to tie trades of all shapes and sizes across the entire country together in a referral network where everyone's incentivized to help everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, leveraging it with the consideration of the cap gap, the capacity gap that they have versus what they're yielding return or revenue on. Putting the two together can be empowering to them, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, and when two people trust each other, why you're doing, it's almost, I kind of get to the point with a situation like that, you're doing a disservice by not sharing a relationship, right? I mean, you're not, you think maybe you're pushing yourself on somebody, but you're not. I mean, that relationship and those referrals, you're actually hurting your customer by not stepping in and helping them process. And so if you can create that trust, I mean, and everybody has that abundant mindset and trust, then you really create something special there. And I think that's one of that same thing. We did joint ventures, they weren't there. And so there wasn't trust initially within our employees to say, why are we doing a joint venture outside of our company? Yeah. We're competing against each other. But when you started to explain all the other side benefits and there was trust within it, it worked. And so it's the same thing. It's how do we show that trust that you're actually helping people to the point where if you're not, it's really a shame.
It's really a shame. Yeah. Being able to leverage the trust relationship that you have as well in the scenarios that you gave, everyone wins, especially the end user, the hero target. Of course, we would subscribe to Dan's language. Who do you want your business to be a hero to? Obviously, your client. They win there because you're combining multiple services that they need and delivering it on a trust relationship to which whoever they have that trust with, they feel like they can hold some level of additional accountability because you know their name. They already are doing business with you. And it makes it a lot smoother for the next person who's really good at what they do. They have to, of course, pass your sniff test, your smell test, because you're putting your reputation on the line. But everybody wins in that scenario. And that's not something that we see leveraged today as a growth mechanism or growth strategy in normal small to medium-sized business.
Yeah, it's not at all used. It's very rare. I mean, it's very rare.
But it's paid us both very well for a long time. Yeah, that's fun.
For sure. I love it.
Yeah.
I love connecting the dots.
Yeah. Anything to create more value is just so fun and rewarding. It's funny, Dean calls it a squirt of dopamine, and it's just, which is a funny little saying in itself. But I would argue you absolutely do. When you're able to help someone and lend your trust relationship that you have with an organization or a service provider, and you're able to help someone else, everybody wins, and you do get that little squirt of dopamine. Yeah. Very funny.
You don't always have to get paid, but it's that circle, and you keep doing it and keep adding value, and it becomes a win-win situation. You get paid back in so many ways.
If we had to ballpark, and this is, of course, would be an educated guess, what would you think, as a general rule, entrepreneurs have as a capacity gap or a cap gap in their organizations, if you were to ballpark it?
I mean, the range that comes to mind is 20 to 30%.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So 20 to 30%. And everybody who's listening, of course, knows exactly what their revenue was last period, whether it be last week, last month, last year, last quarter. And if you could yield 20% more, how would that have affected your profitability just by considering this concept?
100%.
Yeah, it's a game changer. Simple, and it's which most good things are. That doesn't mean they're super easy, but they are simple. And I love the way that you approached it by taking out a specific. You said 2 times a year you did this.
Yeah, on the data we would do it on. We had all sorts of different themes. We would do our budget, and then we would do a fire drill. Which if in real estate, it's up and down. So we would do a fire drill every June and say, okay, the market just dropped 20%. What do we do?
What do we do? I love that.
And it was amazing that we had practiced that for 4 or 5 years. And when COVID hit, we were like overnight, I think we dropped between like $1.1 million or $1.3 million in expenses without cutting personnel overnight. Without even think about it, because we had all practiced it together.
That's
like
awesome.
We knew our waterfall, and here are all the things that we could stop that didn't affect.
Oh wow!
Within a couple of days, it was like, bam, we're done. Okay, now what?
Yeah.
Because we had practiced. So I think those big buckets, it's fun to get together and actually challenge each other once or twice a year. So you built that muscle.
Yep.
You kind of know how everybody's going to act and react. And it's not, we call it a fire drill, but you relax. I mean, firemen don't jump up and go, oh my God, I'm scared, I'm going to go put a fire out.
That's right.
They jump up, they put their uniform on, and out they go.
They have a plan and a system.
Job.
Yeah. That's a great point.
And so I think those big topics, it's fun to brainstorm.
Yeah.
And have it on a calendar once or twice a year, and just kind of go through that process.
And have some fun with it as well.
Yeah, and it's all in your meeting. You get, meetings get boring sometimes. So when you know that, like, okay, I got 4 or 5 specialty meetings a year.
Yeah.
That I got to come prepared to have this topic. You know what you're getting into.
Oh,
you know what to. You get to think. You get to show up and you get to think about it. You get to be creative, and you're starting over fresh each time. You're not just, oh, this is how we've always done it. No, we're having a new conversation. What is our capacity?
Yes.
And that's look at it again. What changed between this year and last year?
Because we know it definitely does. That's the one constant. It's always going to change. Yeah.
And then you look at it internally, maybe with staff,
Yeah.
like the support staff, and externally,
Yep.
there's other ways to look at it. I think you had a phrase, and I'll probably get it wrong, like add the 0 to the front or add the 0 to the beginning. It's kind of right. That could be your internal team. It's
That's
not
correct.
just the revenue side of it. There's other ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the common example I give, I had an organization with about 10 in the sales division, and 6 were killing it, 4 were not killing it. And of course, everybody just wants to get rid of the 4. And I said, well, what if we figure out how to hit our numbers with 1 sales team member?
Right.
And it changed the entire game. It was, obviously, we did not go down to 1 sales team member, but what it showed just by asking those, and what I find most of the time we're not asking the right question, people are just leveraging the social default. They're just coming up with a better solve. I'm like, hold up, we might not be asking the right question. So I use that just add a 0 concept, put it on the front. And everybody, of course, when they get exposed to the concept, wants to put it on the back. That works too, sure, but it's a great point. Ask the question by putting it on the front and see exactly how much gray matter and wisdom and experience and creativity your leadership teams actually have. Yeah.
Got a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as expected, this would be just a ton of fun, real easy to unpack the concept. Probably couldn't have picked another better person on the planet who's not only understand and aware of it, even before it was named or exposed to you, you had already embraced it, figured out a strategy, implemented it, and gotten the rewards from it. So thanks very much for being available today and unpacking this concept. Hopefully it helps a lot of other entrepreneurs.
I love the way you package things up and make it so clean and so simple to understand. So
awesome.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, man. See you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Deb.